Hello, wildflowers and witches. Come closer. Grab a cup of something warm or maybe something cool. Bring out your journal, maybe some art supplies. Let's weave together a tale of summer solstice magic. Are you ready? Welcome back, friend. My name is Maria Alejandra. You can call me MA. I am the resident witch here in Walking in Magic. And regardless of where you fall in that witchy spectrum, welcome round the magical cauldron. We're going to talk about the stars today, mainly the sun. He's going to be the star of the show, no pun intended, but also how he is fully supporting the moon in a mission of transformation that is quite amazing and beautiful. So I want to give you some strokes of like watercolor magic here as we weave together a tale of what this specific summer solstice is going to look like. Each summer solstice has, of course, its flavors of similar things. What is the summer solstice? Well, we are looking at the longest day and the shortest night of the year. So right there's symbolism. We're also looking at this being the earliest summer solstice in terms of the time when it happens, since I believe the date I'm looking at is 1796, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm mistaken, I will add the actual year. I believe that's it. It's happening at 4:50 p.m. Eastern Time on June 20th. And summer solstice isn't really a day. It is a moment in time. Another beautiful symbolism there. But of course, it is a moment that we can breathe more life into. And the reason why I love working with the stars astrology is because they have this beautiful way of telling stories. They're weaving stories in the sky all the time. And we can choose to be co-creative, active participants in the story that they are weaving. And so this period of time, I believe the stage is set for some really incredible medicinal magic in many ways. And so what are we looking at here? All right, June 20th, we have the solstice, again, 4:50 p.m. Eastern Time. June 21st, we have a full moon in Capricorn. Let me place you in space and time. The very first lunation of the year that we honored and celebrated, the new moon, was in Capricorn. And the very last lunation of the year, in terms of new moons and full moons, is going to be you guessed it, new moon in Capricorn. January 11th was that new moon. And then December 30th is going to be that other new moon. So these are bookends to this incredible year of continued transformation that we're going through. Right in between these bookends, we have two, not one, but two full moons in Capricorn. We have one on June 21st, and we have another one on July 21st. Sandwiched in between these two, on July 5th, we have a new moon in Cancer. Cancer and Capricorn are the axis of the mother and the father. Capricorn representative of the father, Cancer representative of the mother. We have this beautiful duality at play here, the masculine, the feminine, the solar, the lunar, the active, the receptive. And in the cosmic philosophy that I practice, which I call creatrix consciousness, we're basically seeking to blend these two all the time. We're seeking to create a more holistic experience of our humanity with our divinity, right? It's about that point where they intersect. And in order to do that, to find those points, and we find them in our Monday life, as we're walking in magic, doing our life, doing the thing we do, we must work cohesively and in harmony with the masculine and the feminine. Now, of course, the masculine has been hypertoxified, and we have all these things that we're healing from, which I talk about a lot as well, often, and have been for a number of years. But I think we're reaching a point where there is, dare I say, some maturity about this within ourselves. The collective is still there's a lot going on, right? I'm not saying, we're reaching a point of harmony between the masculine and the feminine. And I have a couple of recent examples that point to that specifically, which I'm not going to get into today. But that reminded me once again how we are very much in the work of bringing the divine feminine into life as the thunder just opens the sky up. Hello, Uranus. Yes, thank you. Jupiter, they're here. They've been making some waves, and let this be continue to be a place where we can let all of that come to the surface, right? So the lunar and the solar are really what's at play when we talk about solstice, when we talk about the solstice, or when we talk about the equinox, right? We have 2 of these solstice points and 2 of these equinox points every year. Equinox meaning that it's equal, and solstice, there's, a difference. Winter solstice then will bring us, at least in the northern hemisphere, obviously for the southern hemisphere, you're, through the looking glass, you see it the other way around, but still symbolically, you can take a lot of what I'm saying and apply it to where you are and use your intuition and use your own inner wisdom to continue to guide you through your process. But solstices give us either a longer day or a longer night. Here we're working with a longer day. We're working with more solar hours than lunar hours. And the symbolism that I got right as I was setting up this camera, as I was asking myself, what could this mean? What could this, in terms of our evolutionary discovery process, in terms of our, creatrix blossoming, what could this mean? Like, what could we gain from this, longer day and shorter night? Because at first blush, you might think, oh, well, the day is overpowering the night. Okay, but what if we think about it this way, which is the way that I want to channel it through in this moment and create that intention and seed for us, is that the day is actually holding court for the night. The sun, the king, is holding court for his queen. Holding court for his queen, why? Because she's going through a regenerative process, because she needs time to rest. Because my friends, the 6 months ahead, 7 months ahead, I'll tell you why in a second, are going to be potentially incredibly transformative for you and for me if we choose it, okay? Always a choice. It's always a choice to co-create. And I will tell you here, as I've said many times before when I work with my clients, that I see astrology not as divinatory, but rather as revelatory. We can look at it from a divinatory perspective and have some fun with identifying certain dates or things that might happen if you look at your chart and transits. And sure, I've had instances where I've actually pinpointed things that are pretty darn specific. And so astrology never ceases to amaze me. But really, it's less about being divinatory and more about being revelatory. I'm going to be right back. So again, imagine the king holding court for the queen. This is not necessarily about 2 different entities, but rather what it looks like within you. The king in you and the queen in you. The king meaning the more masculine aspects that you hold, and of course the queen, all the feminine aspects that you hold, right? Working in harmony, working in a rhythm, finding its own synchronicity, and then finding them again and again and again in this ever-evolving dance that we're doing as we are blooming and figuring out what the heck is going on and what role we choose to play moment by moment as we discover our own purpose and continue to walk in it. And so here we have these 2 full moons in Capricorn, right, which is the sign associated with the father, that are sandwiching, holding space for this new moon in Cancer, the mother lineage, the moon. This new moon in Cancer in the middle of the year signals for me this pit stop, this resting place, the space of breath. Almost like these 2 pillars of Capricorn, which have that sort of energy, are holding this womb in between. And this really is, when we see it this way, the most beautiful expression of the divine masculine doing what the divine masculine does best, which is to create this protective space and structure for the divine feminine to be able to fully feel safe, to materialize herself, to fully bloom, and to walk about the world in full bloom. Of course, sadly, that is not the situation we live in. Far from it. Chances are that if you're a woman, you have felt more than one time how that is not the case. And so I'm not here to profess pipe dreams that we still need to work on. But that is the essence. That is the essence of how goddess culture was created, how the feminine was revered and was adored and was seen as something so, so, so sacred to be protected. Why? Because she creates. And by the way, regardless of, how you identify, this all applies to each of us because we're holding, as I'm sure you've heard before many times, we hold all of these energies, and certainly both of these energies within us. And it's up to each of us to understand how that manifests and comes to form through you. So how beautiful to have this summer solstice point, right? Which basically ushers in this cradle of transformative energy. The summer solstice is a point of yes. It is the sunflower. It is the sun card. The sun card in the tarot is the card of yes, right? It's the card of, like, here we go. And so imagine for that moment, creating that moment of yes in your solar plexus, of that open, blossomed. Imagine that you have this just incredible bloom. And I always think of sunflowers, of course, when we're working with the sun, but this incredible blooming flower that emerges from the core of the center of your body, energetically, symbolically, spiritually, and how we can connect all of the dots of our experience and try to bring them through that particular moment of bloom. What will that look like for you? What are you ready to say yes to? Which also includes, by the way, the things that you're ready to say no to. Because every no is a door that you close in favor of a yes. So the no's also transform into yeses. So what are you ready to say yes to? What are you ready to say no to? And how are you ready to walk yourself through spaces that are unknown, mysterious, magical, and a little more daring, dare I say, that maybe you haven't traversed before? And why do I say this? Because in our typical existence, we're used to working with the same information over and over again. And so we become kind of like a computer that takes in information and outputs it, like input, output, input, output. If that's how you're feeling, then this summer solstice, choose to create a stop in that sort of program that brings in and spits out. That's just robotic, that's not you, that's not serving you, that doesn't feel fun, it doesn't feel joyful, and choose to put a stop to it. In the same breath, I will tell you, that doesn't mean that the reality around you is just magically and mysteriously going to change. Everything around you may still look exactly the same, be exactly the same, but the ingredient that changes, it's the most important one. It is you and your choice and your perspective and your mindset around that choice. I'm talking about the choice to know that yes, you might be weathering really hard things, but that you don't have to do it alone. And even if you feel alone, that's actually part of the process of your own growth and your rebirth. Everything really is happening for you because your soul is ready to grow through that in some way, hard as it may be. And trust me when I tell you, I know about hard soul moments and the hard growth that happens when we're going through things that feel like we're in the absolute pit of darkness and there's nowhere else to go. So imagine taking this moment in time, first as a yes, and then to walk through into the first pillar. If Capricorn is creating this structure, almost like a temple, and again, this just keeps bringing me back to goddess culture because there were temples to revere the goddess. And inside this temple, and this is all just coming now as I speak it out, inside this temple, there's this beautiful pool of water, perhaps a chalice of water. There's a small body of water. And this body of water is charged with the energy of the moon, Cancer. It is essentially a womb. Imagine it having this amniotic fluid of growth, of potential, and just this incredible sense of rest so that you can pause, so that you can recalibrate, so that you can realign yourself and take a breath and rest for a moment while these two full moons in Capricorn are holding court for you, holding space and illuminating, right? what's happening within in this new moon. So there's these both luminous orbs, and this is all happening right after the summer solstice. I will also point out that beyond those two pillars of the full moons in Capricorn, what do we have just after that? We have a new moon in Leo. Leo, the sign of the sun, the sign of joy, the sign of heart, the sign of innate leadership, the sign of roaring and using your voice. Oh my goodness, could this get any better? And here's where I want to take you a step further, and I want to provide even more juicy tidbits. Okay, are you making note of all of this? Feel free to rewind if you need to. We are right now at this incredible midpoint in our transformative journey. It goes something like this, at least how I'm visualizing and feeling into it. I'm gonna step aside for a moment to talk about the North Node. You have your own personal North Node, which is a treasure trove of information for you in your chart, by the way. We also have collective North Node. If you've watched any amount of astrology, cosmic type videos, you've probably heard of the North Node. If not, I welcome you into the world of working with it more closely, because it is truly one of those incredible points that will just, it's the gift that keeps on giving. So we have been working with a collective North Node in Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, from mid-year last year, around June, up until now. As I'm recording this, we're almost in mid-June. So we've had a year of working. Basically, imagine that we're all walking around in this really big university of life, the universe university. And there was this big room that says, the school of me, right? The school of me. And you go, oh, interesting. And we all basically walked in. Whoever wanted to work with the school of me, we walked in, probably had no clue. That's essentially what happened when the North Node went into Aries. Aries and Libra are in the same axis, and whatever two signs are in the axis, they are complementary and opposing to each other, but they work together hand in hand. Aries is the sign of me, and Libra is the sign of we. For a very long time, we've had an upside down relationship with the dynamic of me and we. We have been putting we before me. Now, this doesn't mean that we're not going to be the most caring, community-driven, empathetic, compassionate, absolutely. But there has been the way that we have betrayed ourselves in favor of others has gotten to a point where we don't even know who we are anymore. And so the way that we even reach out to support others is actually not like clear energy. There's somehow a manipulation there. Now, I know manipulation is a really big word, but hear me out. And this is something I've been feeling for the past couple of years. Manipulation in the sense that we're doing things for others, not from the space of knowing that we are making a contribution, knowing that it's part of our commitment and purpose to do so, being compassionate, empathetic. We're doing it over and over and over again because we have identified our sense of worth with that, with putting out. And so we essentially have betrayed who we are. I invite you to take a pulse. The people around you, maybe you feel the same way, that don't even know who they are, that have relinquished their own understanding of who they are in favor of giving out to everybody else, because that seems like the best way to make yourself feel like you are worthy. Here's the thing, that's misaligned. And so the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra have been putting us face to face with many situations where we may have been triggered by this understanding, where relationships may have shifted dramatically, all in favor of us understanding, but who am I? Really, who am I? And the question has seemed to be asked of us time and time and time again. And if you've been listening, and if you've been feeling it, and you're feeling the unrest, and you're feeling that, then welcome to the club. And hopefully, as we've been presented these opportunities through this, university, in this classroom of me that we've all been looking at, we've been getting tests and pop quizzes, and we've been having writing assignments and all sorts of things. Hopefully, You've been able to move yourself through some new understanding of who you are and really holding that sacred. Because the beauty of what happens when you understand who you are and then somebody else comes from that same place is that then we build a bridge, Libra, that connects us from a place of wholeness and a place of understanding each other in our vulnerabilities, in our imperfections, in our joy, from a radically new perspective of what it means to commune with another human being. Not to do things for each other because we want to make each other happy, we want to people please, we don't want to look, also, we don't want to look bad, we don't want to say, whatever it is then affects you from an ego perspective. And then you continue to just do all these gymnastics and turn yourself inside out time and time and time again. And when you pause and think about it, and I encourage you to do so, notice how that has been completely depleting, how that has completely taken you out of the sphere of understanding who you are and how valuable you are, how amazing you are, and how you deserve to feel like you are a whole person, no matter what you do outside of yourself. Here's the beauty of then understanding who you are, is then you can really give and connect with others from that space. And it is the most healing things for relationships of all kinds, because we're coming at each other with honesty. We're not coming at each other from, basically, this is where the manipulation thing comes in. It doesn't mean like, oh, we're manipulating on purpose, but think about it. We're doing things for each other without really sometimes wanting to do them or understanding why we're doing them. We're doing them robotically. We say yes to things we don't want to say yes to. The list goes on and on. If we were to come towards each other with the honesty that it takes to hold sort of that equal conversation of who are you and what do you want and who am I and what do I want and how do we then come together to make something even better, that's the evolution of us having those true heart-to-heart conversations with each other. And if you're having them out there, my hat is off to you, my dear, because they take a lot of courage and they take a lot of consistency and they take a lot of love. It takes a lot of love to do this work yourself. It takes a lot of love to hold yourself through that fire of transformation of who am I really, while you are also supporting and holding space for others along their journey. Let's go from somebody who does something for someone else just to check a box, right? To check that box that says I have to do this because I have to and I don't even know why. To intentionally knowing that when we reach out to support somebody else who is in need, somebody who can use our support, somebody whose cup we can fill from ours, that we're doing it from the perspective of really knowing that we're helping them hold their hand through a difficult journey, hold their hand through a challenge, hold their hand through a pit stop in life that you can make a difference in, and that is the nature of that space of support. It is incredibly powerful. It is incredibly giving. It is incredibly generous. Here's the thing too that we don't realize is that our generosity, our true generosity, will actually skyrocket when we make this switch. And this is all having to do with that me before we. Side note here, when it comes to our children and those that we care for, we have created commitments with the people in our life, like our children, who need us. You know, there is a point where they need us for their survival. And even then, I will dare say, even our children don't need us in the way that we think they need us. And again, this is a whole other box that I'm opening up for a deeper conversation. But that's sort of the nature of being a whole person as well. But of course, with children, it's different. And the people that we care for, if you identify as a caregiver, as I am, we've made a commitment to help that person and hold them through probably the most challenging thing in their lives, or one of them. So those are two areas where we can also do that deep work. And I say that from my own personal experience of being a mother to a young son and also being a caregiver to my husband. I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so I hope you're still with me, right? So we've talked about the me before we, right? That balance that we're achieving, and when we continue to achieve it, the magic that will be possible there with being in relationship with somebody else. Just imagine. Now, remember how I told you that on January 11th, we had a new moon in Capricorn? Okay. On January 11th of 2025, we have something else really remarkable happening. The North Node will move from Aries to Pisces. Now, in true Pisces fashion, this is a whole other big conversation. How many times have I said that in this video? Because there's a lot of layers to all this story. I'm trying to pack in here as much as I can. The North Node will move from Aries to Pisces. This shift is profound. This shift is one that is going to shake us in a very, very intimate and very profound way. That is the feeling I'm getting. The North Node in the sky moves opposite. So Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It moved from Taurus to Aries, and then it's going to move into the last sign of the zodiac. The shift energetically, and in terms of that North Node, if we see it as like a North Star pointing us in a new direction, and if we go back to university, we're walking the halls again, we're going to take our little diploma from that North Node in Aries of whatever we learned and transformed during that time. And then we're going to go straight into, from one day to the next, the school of the North Node in Pisces. And this is the school of everything, magic, the unknown, the dreams. Like, this is the space of ultimate expansion. The last sign of the zodiac that encompasses everything that we've learned. And so imagine going from that very visceral torch-bearing sign of Aries, that spark starter, that door opener, to the school of Pisces, the school of magic, the school of intuition, the school of the unknown. Just close your eyes for a moment and feel into that shift. Because when I do, it feels so profoundly like jarring, but also what a huge invitation. So here's what I will say I think is incredible to look for in the next 7 months. And I'm recording this today on June 11th because, surprise, surprise, you can't make this ish up. We have 7 months until that moment comes. In those 7 months, we will be met with this yes point of the summer solstice. We're going to be cradled by the full moon in Capricorn. We're going to have that new moon in Cancer, that womb mother moment. Then we're going to have, there's that other point of the full moon in Capricorn. Then we have this rebirth roar point with that incredible new moon in Leo. And we will continue on. Over these 7 months, how do you want to prepare your soul to enter the school of Pisces? The school of intuition, the school of magic, the school of those infinite soul openings and possibilities. There's no really preparing for Pisces because Pisces is like everything and nothing at the same time. Pisces is the ultimate invitation into that space that we so want to tap into, when we want to feel a sense of enchantment in our lives, when we want to really, savor that intuitive thread of being able to speak beyond the words that we can say, to see beyond these eyes, to think beyond the beautiful mind that you already have, to feel beyond. So my invitation for you is that over the next 7 months, something that I think we can all very practically do is to begin to practice the art and the divine discipline of sitting in that unknown astral place. How do we do that? Well, my ultimate recommendation will be to do it in a space where somebody's holding that space for you, especially if you're new, where somebody can guide you through it. But if you feel, but it doesn't mean you need that person. Just want to clarify that as well. I think there's something really beautiful about that because it can give you that sense of consistency. So find that place. And also, if it's you and you alone, do it. You don't need anybody else to tap into this space. So maybe it's once a month. I would highly recommend that you work with the new moons to seed a new point. Almost like if you were preparing yourself for that North Node in Pisces moment where we're all gonna venture off into this new classroom of learning. What do you want to put in your backpack? And what do you want to release from your backpack? Those are the full moons. Put in my backpack, new moon, as the dog barks. Put in my backpack, new moon. Release from my backpack, full moon. So imagine that you are collecting this. When do you collect your backpack? I think in that new moon in Leo is that moment when you collect your backpack, which is July 5th. Yes, I think that's the one. Something else that I want to say, and doesn't that all sound really like juicy and exciting? This is why I love working with these, all of these dates and all this, because it just adds a layer of story to your life. Like it at least for me, I know I'm going to keep living my regular life, and I know that, yeah, sure, you know, I'm still a caregiver, I'm still a mom, I'm still trying to work my business, I'm still, you know, doing all the things I've got to do. But all of a sudden, I have this beautiful underpinning, this story that I can follow. And that, to me at least, feels so juicy and so enchanting, and has the opportunity to bring me back to the source of magic that I ultimately want to cultivate in my life. Which, why? Because it lights me up, because it makes me feel joy, because it makes me feel like there's something more to this mundane living in this life that indeed is really beautiful, and I am so grateful for. And also, I am wired to be an ethereal, bewitching, magical creature. And you probably are as well, if you're watching this. So, hello, kindred spirit. One more thing that I will say, and I will wrap this video up here. Let me see the time. Yes, I will wrap this video up here, is remind us again about what I call the bookends of 2024. The new moon in Capricorn and the new moon in Capricorn, January 11th and December 30th. Another way and perspective to look at this, if this is how maybe you want to explore it, is that right now, with these two full moons in Capricorn, we have this midpoint, check-in point. At the beginning of the year, I led some of my clients through a ceremony where we honored the new moon in Capricorn, and I did this visualization where we were essentially embarking on this quest up a mountain. This is what, one of the things that Capricorn is associated with is that mountain goat. It's about creating your legacy. It's about one foot in front of the other. It's about materializing and continuing to move forward without giving up. So we started at the base of this mountain. And you can imagine now maybe that you have created, in this midpoint of the year, we're going to create a base camp. And preview to, for the full moons in Capricorn, I'm probably going to create some of this content for Patreon. If you want to have that pulse of what it means to sort of stop at this midpoint in the year and assess where you are, assess the materials that you've run out of, assess what you still have, and have this very realistic moment of time. Capricorn is also very realistic. It's okay, well, what do we have and what do we need? I have to bring in Saturn into this conversation because Saturn is in Pisces. We can also see the Saturn is preparing the terrain for when we get into that North Node Pisces area. So Saturn wants to help us bring those Piscean dreams into form. But as I always say, Saturn is like that wise sage that's standing in the corner, sometimes with his arms crossed, and you tell him all your dreams and wishes, and they go, okay, sure. So what are you doing about it? Okay, so what are you doing about it? What's the timing? What's this? It's the Lord of time. It's the Lord of karma. It's the Lord of teaching us the hard things that we must learn in order to take that next step. So Saturn is not one to, just hear all talk. Saturn is wants to, okay, show me. The proof is in the pudding. And so Saturn being in Pisces right now is also setting the terrain for what could potentially happen once we all enter the space of Pisces in the North Node in Pisces on January 11th of next year. It just keeps adding and adding and adding and adding. So how do you want to assess this midpoint? By the way, I have a free recording I did on Patreon. You can access it and it's right there. It's open to the public. Where I talked and gave a little bit more flavor. I recorded it for the new moon in Gemini, but there's also a little more that if you were interested in this conversation, I think you will find that really, really juicy. And then before I wrap up completely and say thank you so much for being here, I do want to tell you that I am going to hold space for I'm calling a Solstice magic ceremony. It's going to happen on Thursday, June 20th. It's going to happen during the time when the solstice is actually happening. It costs $22 to join and save your seat. You'll get a replay and bonus if you acquire my program, The Wildflower Chronicles, which is 8 portals of videos, mood boards, PDFs, a whole bunch of goodies, and a meditation and some extra bonus things. If you buy that, I'm going to give you a free access to that summer magic, solstice magic ceremony. And in that solstice magic ceremony, we will gather to say that yes, and to not only celebrate how far we've come, release, recalibrate. I'll take you on an enchanted shamanic journey, which we'll see what we channel that day. It's probably going to be pretty spectacular. And then you can take that with you as you greet that full moon in Capricorn, and then greet the new moon in Cancer, which I always meet with my moon weavers and the rest of the tiers on Patreon for live ceremonies that you also get the replays for. So this is a good time to say that if you're somebody who wants to follow the pulse of the moon, the pulse of the wheel of the year, the pulse of how to work, weave in your magic, discover your magic, bring it into the mundane, find the mindset to kind of bring it all together and make it make sense a little bit, make you make sense a little bit more, then I would love to see you over on Patreon. You can try the first tier for free for 7 days and see if you like what's in there. And there's also a really juicy opportunity there with the tier where you can do a 30-minute check-in with me every month. And that's the most inexpensive way to work one-on-one together if you want to explore your own stars a little bit deeper. Plus, I also have individual offerings on my website that you can take advantage of. All right. I will leave it there. I will bid you adieu, and I know I will see you again, because I woke up this morning and I was like, stuff is moving, stuff is shifting, stuff is happening. So if you want to continue the dialogue, definitely subscribe, like, comment, share. I really appreciate it as this little channel keeps finding its way and finding its rhythm. And I appreciate you for being here. So thank you, my friend. Be well. I hope to see you in the next one. Adios.